Hello, everybody. Plenty. Welcome. Beer Tackle. I don't know which episode we're on even now.
20. We've made it to the big 20.
We're getting there. Getting there. Before we get going, just want to thank everybody for their support once again on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. All the comments, all the views, and everything. We do appreciate it. Any interaction with the community is always welcome and always fun. So we had a bit of non-URC weekends now, the last 2 weekends, and now we're getting back into the URC for a bit, and it's an exciting weekend. A bit of a derby happening with two island teams. And then we've got some news, some injuries, some good news, some bad news. So let's get the show on the road.
Yeah, it's a long weekend for us, Easter. So we have a public holiday on Friday and Monday. But, the rugby never stops.
Yes.
Let's jump straight into it. So the first game we've got is Sharks versus Edinburgh. If you look at the team for the Sharks, I won't go through all of them, but this is probably one of the best, on paper, the strongest team in the URC. There's no two ways about it. Just Springboks galore. Ebenezabeth, who hasn't played for, I think it's 4 or 5 months now, is back captaining the side. Mapalele Fasio, I think, is by far one of the best fullbacks in the world, and definitely should be our first choice fullback for the Springboks. Back starting. Rukanyam used to be the best 13 in the world, and Andre Estreisen is in magnificent form. So yeah, the list goes on and on. Siya Kolisi, Jordan Hendrickson, Jaden Hendrickson, Papimpi. In saying that, even though I was a betting man, I'd still be very, very doubtful to bet on the Sharks. They can put out a team like this and still find a way to lose. We will do our predictions on it. Edinburgh put out a monster performance against the Lions last weekend in the EPCR and knocked them out. And I think Edinburgh has a lot more to fight for than the Sharks. Edinburgh are in 8th position in the URC. And I think that we are nearing the end of the knock or the round, the pool stages, so to call, in the URC. So yeah, they not want to lose any more games for the remainder of this if they want to keep that top 8 position.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a good matchup. A lot of Scottish internationals in the Edinburgh side. They're missing Duan still.
Yeah, unfortunate. Yeah.
And looking at the other side, like you said, I think on paper, the Sharks alongside a team like Leinster should pretty much be unbeatable sides when it comes to the URC. Eben being back, Pasi being back, I think it's gonna inject some fire under the guys there.
Yeah.
African. Probably the world's one of the top 5 fullbacks in the world, and arguably the best. Having them
best,
back
not even arguably, definitely the best number 4 in the world.
Yeah, having them back, I think. But like you said, on paper the Sharks should win this by at least 60 points. Yeah. And then when that final whistle blows lately, the Sharks have not been where we have predicted them to be. So,
no, 100%.
Just based on that, I went with my prediction. I went Edinburgh with 9 points.
Yo, okay.
It's not that I don't. Not that I don't want the Sharks to win. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Sharks to win. Yeah. And we discussed this a couple of times already, and I feel in most of our South African teams at the moment, and I would probably say with the exception to the Bulls, we've definitely got a massive.
Yeah. Well, look, you're singing to the choir. I am a Shark supporter, and believe me, I've been more disappointed than anyone about with their recent performances. And I mean, it didn't start yet. I mean, they had a horrific URC season last season. Even this season they've lost. I mean, they are fourth in the log, but they've lost games they definitely should have won. With top tier players. So yeah, but I think with Ebenezer back, that is going to inject a lot of fuel to say. With Apelele Fassi, who's going to run riots, and the fact that João Penke is not in the match at 23 probably will help us a lot as well. So I think I'm going to go Sharks at 25 points.
Okay, interesting. We'll see. I mean, I'm sitting comfortable on our Super Brew pool.
Yeah, maybe this. Hopefully, this is the one. This is the round.
All right. Next up. Lions versus Benetton.
Yeah, well, Benetton have been in very good form, and the Lions have been very, very up and down. They were one of the only unbeaten teams in the URC for a short while, and then obviously, after that, they've lost a lot of games they shouldn't have lost.
They went from being the unbeaten team to being the team that battles to actually win a game.
Lions have a lot of good players. I think they're on a 4-game losing streak at the moment. EPCR, URC included, but they have a lot of good players. It is sad that they are losing Edwell. Not sad for me that he's coming to the Sharks. It is sad that they have lost on Ellen Ramba and Jordan Hendricks and the Stuka brothers. But I still think there's a lot of very, very good players in the Lions team. And they are playing at home. I'm going to back the Lions on this. I'm going to say the Lions by 10.
Oh, here's the thing with the Lions. So the Lions are they've got passion and everything. And again, I think they're sitting with a bit of a coaching dilemma, because I mean you can't go from beating the Sharks by 24 points one weekend and then go and lose to the Sharks by 3 points the next weekend.
Next weekend.
That's very odd for me,
And getting smashed 42-0 by Glasgow. I mean,
yeah, well, that's not really a surprise for me. If you look at the quality of Glasgow, the coaching of Glasgow, I'm also, Ellis Park, hard stadium to play on. It's a pity that it's a bit of a dead stadium when the Lions do play. But I'm also going to back the Lions, being true to our South African roots. I mean, I said the Lions by 16. And I think they're going to pull it through.
When they play. So let's hope they play. Yes. Rainer Smith versus Crane Horn. Rainer Smith, I remember that game again when Benetton smashed the Sharks in Kings Park. Rainer Smith was impeccable, So I'm actually very, very excited to see that matchup. I mean, Crane Horn, obviously one of the young up-and-coming fullbacks, who's also been in brilliant form. So I'm very, very excited to see that. But yeah, I also back the Lions.
Definitely.
Next, your team, Stormers versus Connacht.
Easy win for the Stormers there. I think I picked the Stormers by 48.
Yo.
No, I'm just joking. Look, the only thing that swayed my pick a little bit there, and we'll cover that in the news, was the coaching resignation and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think the Stormers just have enough back. With all the injuries and stuff, not being part of the major competitions when you look at the Champions Cup, EPCR and stuff, I think they got that well needed rest. I think just a bit of composure in the camp, get back to a bit of normality, take the break, nurse the injuries, So I think the Stormers are going to come back, and obviously, they 10th at the moment, so they're also still playing for that that 8th position.
I think they'll make it. I actually think they can make it. I think if the Stormers are playing Sasha, at 10, and they've got Warwick back, I can't see why not. And your previous prediction of 48 or whatever might not be that far off. Connacht are going into the South African tour without their coach, which we'll dive into a bit deeper, and also without the likes of Bandiaki and Mac Hansen, who's both been injured or are out injured, and are not going to be playing against the Stormers. So, if I was John Dobson, well, obvious not anyone would just pick the strongest team that you possibly can and go for it. I do think that they might be able to put Connacht away very nicely.
Well, let's hope so. Look, Irish sides, although we give the Irish sides a lot of flack on this podcast, they're always quality outfits. Connacht might be lying 13th, but they've been performing exceptionally when it comes to, the European Cups and stuff. So I won't write them off. And rugby is a team game, so yes, Bandiaki's not there. It's all good and well. Connacht's still a quality outfit, though. I wouldn't. There's actually not a team in any competition, in any major competition anymore that you can say, even a team lying last, say, oh yeah, but they, easy wins and stuff. If the Dragons pitch up on the day, for example, they still, they can still make some waves. So it's going to be a good game, I think. I just think the home ground advantage is going to edge the Stormers a bit. So I went Stormers with 23. That was my Super Brew pick.
I don't know what I said on Super Brew.
You went with 12.
Fuck, okay. I would. I should have gone with a bit higher, but yeah, then it's Stormers at 12.
Well, let's hope it's mine is closer. Okay, next up is Ospreys versus Cardiff at the Principality. So that's gonna be an interesting matchup with that. And funny enough, there's actually two matches at the Principality this weekend, because later on the Dragons play the Scarlets at the Principality Stadium, so they obviously having a full on derby weekend there, and that's fantastic.
How lucky must that not be? You can imagine, you can go, let's say, the HL stadium or whatever, preferably the HL stadium, which in my opinion is probably the best rugby stadium in South Africa, where you have the Sharks, for instance, against the Bulls at 2 o'clock, and then at 4 o'clock or 4:30 or 5 o'clock, you've got the Lions versus the Sharks or whatever. I would, that would be very, very nice.
Yeah, but we're going to have to Uber home then, right? Because I can tell you now, we're not going to be able to drive home after a
4 hours, 5-6 hours at the stadium.
Yeah, I know. And then, when we watch rugby, the beers flow, Yeah, so, but in any case, Ospreys, Cardiff. I'm
going to go with Ospreys. I think Ospreys are very strong at home. Not too long ago, the Scarlets gave them a hiding away. And then when the Scarlets went it's Principality Stadium. So who is home?
Yeah, it's a home game for everything.
Sort of a neutral.
Yeah. That's where it gets interesting, though. For me, if I look at the last 7 matches played by each team, the Ospreys have won 4 of the 7, and they've drawn once. And Cardiff has won 2 and drawn 1. And
I'm gonna go Ospreys just because of Jack Morgan.
Yeah, which makes it ironic, though, is considering that Cardiff is still ahead on the log. With regards to Ospreys, but looking at the last 7 matches, the Ospreys have a much better winning record. So
yeah.
I think Cardiff started out of the blocks pretty well, and I think they've kind of lost a bit of gas. And understandably, Wales rugby is on a bit of a downslope.
Yeah. But they do have the interim Wales interim coach as their coach, Cardiff.
Yeah, so we'll see. And he did well for me with Wales, but I also went easy. It should be an easy win for Ospreys. Did Ospreys with 15 points. You went Ospreys with 3. So you went a bit more conservative there. I
have to beat you. Can't take chances.
No, you need to go big. All right. Then probably for me, the game of the weekend for me.
To me as well. 100%.
Is Munster versus the Bulls. It's 5th. fifth place playing third place, you know. So this is like this is like right up there. Munster, you know, they did a couple of things in the EPCR and EPCR Champions Cup and whatnot, and they won their last match against Connacht by 6. But prior to that, they lost 2, which one of them was against Edinburgh. So, you know, I don't think Munster is there, probably there where they should be. But like we just did in one of the previous matches, you know, it's quality teams that's playing here. These are not your Mickey Mouse teams that are playing here, you know. They've also still got the Irish players. You know, the Bulls. Yeah, the Bulls are traveling, and they're coming off a massive win in the URC against Zebra Palma, and they just fell out of the EPCR. A match where they shouldn't have fallen out of. But needless to say, the Bulls touring. If they stayed that side, you know, after the EPCR games, I'd back the Bulls. If they came back home and went back, I don't think the Bulls are going to make it. But you know, being true South African and the split on the predictions are really tight. It's a 56% for the Bulls to win, 43% for Munster to win. So it's going to be a good game. If both of these sides pitch up and they play the games that they can play and that we know them to play, it's going to be a cracker. I did pick the Bulls, and I picked the Bulls by 19.
I'm surprised that the Bulls are the favourites to win this. I mean, to me, a thinking man would actually back Munster, or a betting man would back Munster, because I mean, the Bulls are on their third week away now, and they just lost to who did they just lose to? Who knocked them out in the EPCR?
Wasn't it Edinburgh? I'm sure it was Edinburgh.
Yes, you're 100% right. I got confused with Lions and Edinburgh and the Bulls. You're right, and Edinburgh just knocked out the Bulls. In a way. Munster at home. I think that Munster would believe that they can do it. They probably should be able to do it. But I'm still going to back the Bulls. I don't know. I just the Bulls can pull a rabbit out of the hat sometimes. They can also disappoint you, not as bad as the Sharks can disappoint you, but they probably are one of the more consistent teams in between the 4 unions of the South African unions.
No, for sure.
I'm going to say the Bulls by 7. And I think they will win. I just don't think it'll be with a lot. I think Jake White just needs to learn who to start and who not to start. I know that he tried to have that little impact bench against Edinburgh, and it didn't really work out for him because they played very well, you know, the players coming off the bench. But, you know, the game was just already lost for them. You know, they just conceded too much points with the first half. So I would start Johan Goosen. David Kriel, I think he did start last weekend. And you know, Cameron Ranacom. It's a big pity that the Bulls have a lot of good players that are out injured, like Aldrich Lau, who I miss a lot. You know, used to love watching him play. And obviously Opavelli. And Devin Williams, he can be very electric. I just don't think he is, you know, definitely not one of the top fullbacks.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I agree with you. I think, you know, you at that stage in the competition. The Bulls are lying third. You know, the second spot's still open. There's only a 5-point difference between the Bulls and Glasgow. You need to play full strength sides because a second place means you can potentially have home games all the way to the final. You know, the only thing that could cause you not to have a home game is if Leinster also progresses and getting to Leinster in a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I would play full strength if I was the Bulls. I would definitely just.
Well, he's got nothing else to play for. Yeah, I mean they've knocked out of the European Cup. So Jake White, I'm sure he's going to send it. You know, let's hope the Bulls can put it through. And I actually think that before we move on to the next game, I know we've got a lot of games to talk about. I think they're away again. Yes, they play Glasgow Warriors away, so they'll be on the road for a full month by the time they play Glasgow Warriors. You know, so the Bulls really have an uphill battle coming for them.
Okay, next game, Dragons Scarlets. Yes,
I think the Dragons have only one game this season.
I kind of went and backed the Dragons for this one, and I can't tell you why. It just was a gut feeling for me. Yes, I think it's a derby. I think they've got a lot to play for. They're gonna have a lot of their fans at the stadium and stuff like that. So neither one of these teams are high up on the log.
No.
I don't think it's going to be a runaway game. I don't think it's one of these teams are going to lead by 15 to 20 points. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's probably going to be and I backed the Dragons. I said I said the Dragons by 2 points, and I think it's going to be one of those games. It's probably going to be high scoring, but it's going to be close. I think it will probably end up being like a 46-44 kind of score, because I think these teams, having that derby weekend or that derby Saturday, at the Principality, back-to-back games, the crowd's going to be hyped up and all the stuff, and I think they're going to see some exciting rugby this weekend.
I'm gonna go Scarlets. Scarlets obviously have a lot of good, exciting players like LSME. So I don't know. I just think the Dragons have only won one game. I know that a lot of times they lose. They don't lose with the biggest margins. They don't always look as terrible as it seems. I just think that the Dragons probably don't have a lot to play for, because they're the first team to have been confirmed not to be able to make the top 8. So I think if you're going into a game with that, if you're not playing to win, what the fuck are you playing for?
Yeah.
Whereas the Scarlets, have a slim, but they have a chance. So yeah, I'm gonna say Scarlets.
Okay. All right.
Then we've got Zebra versus Glasgow. So the Glasgow.
So the next two matches are at the same time. So just so that everybody knows, they're both at 8:30 on Saturday.
I'll probably watch Leinster versus Ulster.
I think that's probably going to be the safe bet. Well, Zebra Parma. So it's 15th versus 2nd. I don't have a lot of hope for Zebra here. Last 7 matches they've only won 3. And they've lost back to back. Last 7 matches, Glasgow Warriors have only lost twice. Once was against Edinburgh by 3. That was during the Six Nations, and the other one was to the Ospreys by 1, and that was at the end of the the Six Nations. So a lot of internationals went there and stuff like that. So the scales also predict 90% win for Glasgow. So I see on our Super Bowl, all of us went big. I went Glasgow with 24, and I think it should be an easy day at the office for them.
Yeah, 100%. They'll be hating out of because of that massive beating that Leinster put on them last weekend. And hopefully Franco Smith will use that to motivate the boys, and knowing that they still have a chance to go back to back in the URC. And then Leinster versus Ulster, I think this can be a good game. I mean, the last time we saw Ulster play was against the Stormers, when they beat the Stormers. Obviously some calls there that were a bit, dodgy. But still, I still think that Leinster are going to. I think Leinster are going to put a number on Ulster. I think Leinster, whether they play a B or C team, I still think that Leinster can pull it off.
Like we said, they beat a Springbok,
Leiden Sharks. Yeah,
Leiden Sharks at home. It wasn't even like they were playing them, in Ireland. Leinster at the moment, and as much as we've given them flack, and as much as it hurts
to say it, yeah,
they definitely at the moment, I feel that Leinster is probably the club, in the world. When it comes to club rugby, they look fantastic.
100%.
Their players are gelling and whatnot. So definitely Leinster. I didn't go as high as you went. I went Leinster with only 20 points. I see you went Leinster with 30. So you've obviously got a lot more, faith in.
Look, I'm not the biggest Leinster fan. I do think that they've got a fucking infinite budget. They've got our Springbok winning Rugby World Cup winning coach. They've got Jordie Barrett. They've got Erg Snyman, and then 90% of the Irish team. Usually, that was sort of the one thing I used to fall back on when people say how good Leinster are. But there is no denying that they are a tier above any other team, and I mean, uh, and what sort of made me really really respect them was them coming down to Durban without their Geordie Barrett, without their Argus Raymond, and without 90% of the Irish team, and still beating them. A Springbok laden Sharks team. Look, the Sharks are also not the safest bet either, but just the fact that those youngsters came on and it just felt like it's sort of, I think it comes down to a culture thing, and I always say that, but I feel like every single player just knows exactly what's expected of them, what to do, and even though they aren't the regular starters in that Leinster jersey, but when they do get their chance, they do perform, because the Springboks have the saying, always, how does it go? Always take the jersey better than where you find it, or something like that. So I don't know. I think Leinster have a lot going for them. Despite, fuck it, Leinster gonna smash them.
I think so too. Yeah, that's the matches up. Hope you guys enjoy those matches this weekend, and yeah, let's we're gonna move on to the news now.
Okay, news. So we've got a few more things to talk about. It was a interesting week of rugby news this week. Let's start with the first one. So we touched a bit on it when we were doing the predictions. The first one is Connacht coach quits on the eve of the SA tour. Actually don't even know what his name is. But he left with immediate effect. Literally just before they departed for South Africa.
Yeah, I went and did some homework on it. His name's Pete Wilkins, by the way. Yeah, he's been with Connacht quite a bit, and he's been in the ranks. He was a defense coach at one point. He was attack coach at another point. Then became the head coach. He was interim head coach before that. So he's been with Connacht a while. Sad to see him go. He was one of the coaches for, I think it was the first time in a decade that Connacht made the playoffs of the Rapid Championships EPCR matchups. So credit where it's due. I think we're losing as Rapid supporters, we're losing a titan in coaching with him, but he is departing as far as I can gather due to health concerns. He's already missed 4 or 5 weeks this season due to health concerns, and I just think you need to put yourself first, and your family, your well-being, and everything comes first. And if that's the path that he feels is going to be for him health-wise, all the best to him, and whatever's going on. I didn't see too much information regarding what's wrong or what. So all the best to him and his family, and from us at Spear Tackle, I hope that there is a recovery, and hopefully at some point maybe we'll see him back coaching a side that can produce the quality that we've seen with teams like Connacht. Yeah, so all the best. And then next up with the news,
Rike Ioane departs for Leinster.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused by this this whole sabbatical thing going on in World Rugby. But I do feel that at the moment Leinster doesn't have a choice, and I think it's good for Leinster. It's good for the Irish players, because they're getting exposure to the to more of the Southern Hemisphere style of rugby, outside of the competition they're playing against with the South African sides, and playing with going from Geordie Barrett, probably one of the most influential and best inside centers / fullbacks that we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years in World Rugby. And they're replacing him with Rike Ioane, probably one of the best, center / wings that we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years. You know, so for Leinster, a massive boost. I think it's going to be fantastic for them to have those kind of players and whatnot. And
yeah, well, let's see. You know, I think it's going to be very, very awkward in the changing rooms after all the shit Rico Jane gave the Irish players after they beat him in the World Cup, especially Johnny Sexton. So yeah, but I think it's going to be very. I'm just excited to see him playing in the URC. You know, I do like Rico Jane. You know, he's a bit cocky, but I actually like him for it. I'm excited to see it.
Then it's gonna fit in with Leinster
Perfectly.
Yeah, no, but all the best to him as well, and it was great to see, you know, familiar faces with Geordie Barrett playing among the South African club sides as well again. You know, we're used to seeing him in the Super Rugby when we were still part of that. And you know, as much as I don't like to say it, but he is probably one of the best centers in the world, and probably one of the best goal kickers in the world as well. You know, very, very rarely misses, and the one time that he did decide to miss was against us in the finals. So, you know, win-win for us there. Next up, probably something that I feel, you know, very strongly
much
about.
Needed.
Yeah, Black Lion from Georgia is set to join the URC, and it seems like they've got the backing of the Bulls and the Stormers at the moment, you know, to make that happen. So Georgia currently, you know, lying 11th in the world rankings, one spot above Wales. You know, Wales still seen as a tier 1 nation, and all of a sudden you're behind teams like Fiji, you're behind teams like Georgia, and all of a sudden. And look, the thing is with Georgians, we've seen them in a couple of World Cups, we've seen them in a couple of friendly matches and stuff like that. They've got a formidable scrum. They've really probably got a formidable scrum. A lot of their players do play club rugby in France, so it's not that they are not used to playing big games. But I think including them into a top tier competition, and probably arguably, you know, one of the top 3 to 5 competitions in the world at the moment in the URC, where they're going to get exposures to different teams. You know, we've got Italian sides, there's Irish sides, there's Welsh sides, there's Scottish sides, you know, and then obviously the South African side. So you're kind of getting exposed to some serious big teams, big names, and whatnot. And I think it's just going to boost the confidence of Georgian rugby through the roof. And how fantastic would that be? You know, I had a discussion about a week and a half ago when we were talking about the whole thing in relation to the Champions Cup and the EPCR and the URC and whatnot. And you look at the Rugby World Cup, you know, when you go to a Rugby World Cup, there's probably about a handful of teams that can win it, you know, and you're probably going to back the team ranked 1 to 5 to eventually walk away with the cup. But I mean, you look at soccer, you know, when you go to a soccer World Cup, you know, and you look at let's say there's 40 teams that partake. Any one of those 40 teams has a chance to, you know, lift the trophy at the end of the day. And I feel we need that in rugby. We need that where you can go and say, you know, there's 4 pools of 4 teams each or 5 teams each, and in every pool, every team stands a chance to actually lift the cup. And I feel moves like this and inclusions like this into major competitions, especially of your smaller tier nations, is fantastic for the game. I think it makes them better. Which means that even friendlies and stuff now, when you know, when we've got incoming tours and you play a team like Georgia, you know, they've got exposure to big name to big game or big names. So they're not gonna, you know, come intimidated by playing the Springboks or intimidated by playing the All Blacks and whatnot. And that's fantastic for rugby. I love the fact that this is happening. And I hope it comes
World
through.
World Rugby always talks about, you know, sort of trying to grow the tier 2 nations in rugby, and this is how you do it, you know. I mean, if you look at Georgia, who play in like sort of the second tier 6 nations, I think it's just called the Rugby European International Championship or something. They've won it 17 times, you know. They won it this year. They won it last year. They won it in 2023. They won it in 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018. Okay, 2017 they didn't. 2016, 2015, 2014, 20... It's their championship, you know. So I think if you can't give them a shot in the Six Nations, the URC is a very good start for one of the domestic teams like Black Lion. I don't know if they have any other domestic teams, but you know, give them a chance. I think it's going to be very nice to see them, and I do think it's going to be very good for the players to get those exposure. You know, obviously Georgia is a big rugby nation. Seeing how well they are doing in their international competition. So yeah, help them grow. You know, how we are going to work it, I'm not sure because it's going to be an uneven number. So I'm not really 100% sure how it's gonna work. But I mean, those are some smaller details we can iron out later on.
I feel in a situation like that, I agree with you. You know, creating that uneven situation is obviously not ideal, but you know, you maybe look at another nation that's doing pretty well. You know, we've got Belgium that just qualified for the 2027 World Cup. You're looking at Portugal that came to South Africa, and you know, the last World Cup, Portugal had quite a few games where they nearly went and you know, upset and caused problems. They didn't look that bad against South Africa and whatnot. And you know, so maybe get a club side from Portugal or from Belgium, or maybe do a combination, invitational club side to come to the URC as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's see. The next one we've got, and this is the last one we've got, and probably one we'll dive in a bit deeper, is Jasper Wiese is ruled out for the season and probably won't play in the 2025, for the Springboks. Now, as sad as this is, I love Jasper Wiese. I really do. I think he's a brilliant player. This does give us an opportunity to sort of blood someone in that position and in eighth man. And I think we've spoken about it so many times before about how many brilliant, good loose forwards this country is producing. And I think the likes like Cameron Hanekom and Evan Ruiz and even Frankie Horn you really have a big opportunity. I mean, you look at Sasha Faimangumazulu was captain 2024, and then all of a sudden was sort of our starter. Same like Aparele Fassi, you know. So it's only possible to assume that one of these young lighties can come through and sort of make that jersey their own and look fucking good in it, you know. To me, it's Cameron Hanekom. I can't see anyone else except Cameron Hanekom. As good as Evan Ruiz, and I won't be upset if it is Evan Ruiz or Frankie Horn. I won't even be upset if it's Frankie Horn. I just think that Cameron Hanekom deserves that shot. He is an impeccable player, in impeccable form. I think he's really is a brilliant guy, and he deserves that chance. You know, he's still very young, 21. He's got a lot of rugby to play. You know, he missed out due to injury last year. So I think he had one cap earlier, but last year he had one cap, I think. But during the rugby championship, he was ruled out due to injury for the Bulls. But anyways, yeah, I do think that Cameron Hanekom is my first choice after Jasper Wiese.
I definitely agree. Very good inputs that you have there, and you know, luckily we do have a lot. You know, but Evan Ruiz, we've got Cameron Hanekom, we've got Kulisi that's playing 8 at the moment as well. He's really looking very comfortable at 8.
Yeah, he is.
So it's you know, hopefully Jasper's injury is not dire and he does recover. But luckily for us as South Africans, we do have a lot of options and we do have a lot of things we can fall back on. So yeah, I think, you know, from my side, that's all I have. All the best to Jasper from us here at Spear Tackle, and I hope to see you on the field again soon.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we hope it does. You know, we do see him again. But yeah, give the young boys a shot, guys. I think let's call it on that. We'll see you guys next. We'll see you guys on Sunday for our review of the URC games. Where either Timo can laugh at me for my ridiculous picks, or I can laugh at him for his ridiculous picks.
Yeah, I'll probably have the last laugh again. My picks have been pretty solid lately. But yeah, guys, all the best. Enjoy the Easter weekend. Those of you that are traveling, please travel safe. Enjoy all the rugby, and then we'll see you guys again on Sunday.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.